Welcome to Women's Brew, where women talk about beer. In today's episode, we are all queens as we discuss Hop Hideout's 9th birthday collaboration beer. I'm Joanne and this is Tori.
Hello.
And we're two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us. All right, today we are joined by Tash and Jules. Hello, ladies. Very pleased to have you. Welcome. Tori's not going to drink today, so I've just seen her with her cup of tea. Boom. She's not feeling very well today, so she's going to be sensible and just have tea and
being
water.
Sensible for once in my life. I'm being sensible, so that's on recording, and you can't take saying that back.
No, can't take that back. So she's going to be sensible and she's going to live vicariously through the rest of us. But if you would like to tell us, Tash and Jules, where are you from? Why are you here? Why are we drinking this delicious beer that we've got here today?
Oh, well, thanks for having me on the podcast. A long time listener, so it's good to be on. I know, and we met for the first time back in March, didn't we, of this year when you both came up to Sheffield. So so it's kind of all snowballed from there really as well. So my name's Jules Gray. I live and run a beer business in Sheffield. It's called Hop Hideout. It's a little independent beer shop. I do lots of other bits and bats in the beer scene for my sins. So one of them being Sheffield Beer Week, which is a citywide annual sort of beer celebration that's been going on in Sheffield since 2015. So we're going to be celebrating some big ones next year, and also started a craft beer festival, just a little boutique one in Sheffield, OBS. Called Indie Beer Feast, and that's been going since about 2018. So that's me in a little nutshell.
And hey folks, I'm Natasha. I am a long-time fan of the podcast and also a friend of Jules. I have worked in the beer industry for quite a while, and I am the marketing manager at Mother Kelly's in London. But on top of that, I am co-founder of Crafty Beer Girls, which is mainly why I'm here today with some great women within the beer industry. So thanks so much for having me as an add-on guest.
Yeah, of course. I've got to say, while we're talking about Crafty Beer Girls, I now work in the beer industry as well. I don't think I would be where I am today if it hadn't been for Crafty Beer Girls, because I joined the Facebook group, then I went to Wildcard for International Women's Day in 2019, and then it snowballed from there, and here we all are now today. So if you
that's really sweet.
Thank you for doing that.
I mean, it's part of why the beer that we're drinking now, the one that we've all started on, it kind of came about a little bit really, because Hop Hideout celebrated its 9th birthday. So I've been around for 9 years, which is amazing. It seems so quick, but yet so long. It's really difficult to sort of I know we've all been in that situation when you can't believe it's that length of time, but part of the reason why I wanted to do this collab beer, which is a sort of a flavored sort of strongish stout, was because Crafty Beer Girls were really beneficial and supportive for me in the pandemic. It was just kind of I've never actually been able to attend in person until recently, and it was just really, really good and supportive and like I say, beneficial mentally, having a group of people we checked in on weekly at some points. I found that really really positive. And obviously Tasha, who sort of founded it, and that helps with a lot of the events as well now. They've just been really supportive in a lot of things that I do, and I just wanted to do this collaboration, really celebrating all these sort of amazing women that I know in the beer scene that maybe a wider network of people don't know. And if more women can find out about Crafty Beer Girls. That's great. I know it's sort of spawned its own little Manchester offshoot, hasn't it? That Francesca helps run. And and for me, Wildcard, Jager's such a legend, isn't she? And I just felt she was a really underrated brewer. And I don't think so much anymore now that she's got a book out and she's won like Brewer of the Year and she's won various, I think, she's pretty much featured, it seems to be, everywhere you look on social media and various sort of magazines. But, I feel for quite a few years she's been a bit underrated as a brewer, and I really wanted to I was a bit scared to ask her, actually. I thought she might say no, but she didn't. Which was lovely, and we sort of came together at one sort of wintry day in the beginning of October, and I went down to Walthamstow. Tash came along as well, and another Crafty Beer girl, Manuela, and we sort of helped kick off the brew, as it were, for the collaboration. So yeah, what do you think, Jo?
Oh, I haven't cracked it open yet. Right, so it is.
I was going to say yes.
I've been listening. I'm like, it's I Am the Queen, and it's chocolate maple and pecan stout at 6.9%. Let's get this open. Got my wild card glass. Put it in.
I'm getting FOMO.
It's just going to be a lot upset now.
I love the connection though that Jo went to the International Women's Collab Brew Day, which obviously happens in March around International Women's Day, and that obviously Tash and myself came together to brew this collab at the brewery with Jager. So it's a nice little kind of synergy there across us all. Yeah,
all connects nicely together. And I saw Jager at the Brewers Congress the other day, and she was like, "Oh, you're going to do this? Have you tried the beer yet?" And I was like, "No, I haven't tried it yet because I'm saving it for it." She's like, "I think I'm going to be too busy to come on." And then I text Tori and was just like, "So I was talking to Jager," and she's like, "Yeah, right, stop name dropping."
I believe the conversation actually went, "Yes, I just name dropped," and I was like, "Yes, I was about to just tell you not to name drop."
I was just talking to Jager earlier.
She went, I was talking to Jager, not to name drop.
Oh, but she's so down to earth though. Yeah. She's brilliant.
Yeah,
I've met her a few times at various festivals and events, and she's just really down to earth and lovely.
Yeah, what I love is like one of the catalysts in Crafty Beer Girls growing was attending the International Women's Brewed Collab Brew Day at Wildcard consecutive years in a row. But also just Jager would come down to the monthly meetups that we had quite regularly. She still does, but I thought that was, really nice to always have this sort of, a brewer amongst us more often than not. And no matter how busy or how much on TV she gets and stuff like that, she's just really solid person. So I feel very, very happy that we're here and we can raise glasses to all these great women.
And I think listening to Jo talk about her experience, cheers with my tea, super fun. I think hearing Jo's experience with International Women's Collaboration Brew Day, like when we first started talking, when we first started the podcast, really is like, that really positive experience going down to Wildcard and maybe going outside comfort zones and going, by yourself. And like that inspired me to be like, actually, I want to go and do an International Women's, because I always kind of thought like, I don't know if I could do it, I don't know if it would be for me. And then she's like, no, of course you can. And that kind of inspired me to go out and do it. And I think it was kind of the same thing of like with the Crafty Beer Girls group. She was talking about how great it was, and I was like, I don't know if I should, I'm not in the industry. I don't think I should really join that. And Jo's like, no, of course you can. And then like, since going into that group, I feel like I've seen like lots of really good conversations and really good support. And I've not been able to get to a meetup myself either, just because it always falls on a day when I've got something going on, so I can't get into London or where it's happening. But I'm really looking forward to it, because I feel like there is a lot of really good people that are having like really good, meaningful conversations. So, but it's really funny, Jules, hearing you be like, oh, I was scared to ask like Jacob, because I feel like that would be like, I would be like, no, I'm scared. Like, you have a whole business. Like, you shouldn't be scared. Like, you're good. Like, I feel like I'd be the person that's scared. So it's almost comforting to know that there's someone else that that would also feel well deserved, like to be able to go and ask that I'm not the only person that would be able to kind of feel somewhat intimidated. Like, it's nice to know that even if you are really successful, you kind of do still have that level of like, oh no, that's like it makes me feel not alone, and it's comforting to know that.
I do think it is, especially with how the beer industry is growing. It's growing so fast, and there is some competition, but I always try and remind myself it's just beer at the end of the day, and beer should bring people together. So by not doing something or not joining in on something, I'm only going to like deprive myself of that.
Yes.
Like making those connections and sharing that extra beer. And there's also like, you know, I've learned there's so many women and just good folk out there that I'm like, yeah, you'll only learn or make another friend.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think we're all slightly different, aren't we, in, you know, how our personalities and our traits and things like that. And I think that you know, I'd probably describe myself as quietly confident, and maybe not sort of the you know, the loudest person in the room, but and I think, you know, sometimes, especially being in business, I've had to kind of learn to put myself forward a little bit more, for obvious reasons, you know. And it's been a bit of a journey in that respect, especially sort of when you're kind of the, you know, the face, as it were, of your business as well. It can be kind of a huge learning curve, and yeah, I guess I think maybe again it probably stems from childhood and other things like that, but you know, I used to be quite shy, and again I've sort of had to, I suppose, through my passions, when I get really into something and, you know, geeky about it, I'm confident to talk about it, and you know, having groups and you know, like Nat that does Crafty Beer Girls with Tash, runs her virtual beer school. You know, even me as someone that's worked in the trade for sort of 15 plus years, you know, I still went on that course because there's things that you question when you're self-taught.
Yeah.
And I think I found it really beneficial to have more of a you know, a sort of theoretical and industry knowledge base, which is quite difficult in this industry to find courses, really. You know, they're either very expensive and very specific, like Heriot Watt or University of Nottingham, which not everyone can afford to access, or have the time, or you know, in my case, I might feel like, well, you know, I'm in my 40s now. Am I really going to go off and do that? Or you've got, you know, your Institute of Brewing and Distilling qualifications, but again, they can seem quite relevant towards brewing or packaging and things like that. There used to be the Beer Academy courses, but I think I'm not sure what's happened in the pandemic, but they sort of seem to have fallen by the wayside a little bit. So Cicerone is one of the only kind of things that seems to be a constant industry standard, and that obviously helps people undertake the learning to sort of study the Cicerone if they want to. Obviously people don't have to, but I just found it really it gave me confidence, and that's helped a lot in being an independent, you know, person in business as well. I don't know where I was going with that tangent, to be honest.
No, I loved when you said like quietly confident, because I was like, you started with like, you know, it's how we're all different. That's really great, quietly confident. And I was like, I love that, because yes, like we are different. I am loudly unconfident. Like I would say that I'm probably very loudly unconfident. I don't hesitate to be like, yeah, no, don't know, like just absolutely. And I do tend to like, I definitely put myself down. I feel like that's how I am. I'm very it's very like, I've got a very dark sense of humor as it is anyways, and there's a lot of like self-deprecating humor in there, so that's why I would say probably quite loudly unconfident and self-deprecating, but yeah, it is that thing of like, I might have this knowledge, but even so, you know, I mean, even like, not like, I'm not in the industry. That is not, I say this again, this is what Joe usually shouts at me, because it's like, well, you do a podcast, but I always see myself as like the beer adjacent person. Like, my day job is not beer, so I always tend to question myself as well, where I start going like, I know that I know the answer to this, and I know that like, if I'm drinking a beer and I'm kind of analyzing a beer, and I know a style, like I know style guidelines, if I don't know it, I don't hesitate to go and Google to try to see like, am I actually picking this up right? Am I picking up the hops right? Am I doing this and I'm doing that? But I found like, you know, you put something out there on like a Facebook group or something, and people start, you know, chiming in on that, and then you start to question yourself, where you're like, oh, do I actually know this? And then you kind of start becoming like less and less confident of like, oh, now I'm afraid to engage in these conversations, because maybe I thought that I knew the right thing, and I'd go to Joe like, I'm thinking like, I'm having this, and this is what I think I'm tasting, like, does that sound right to you? And she's like, yeah, it's fine, you're good. So you are definitely not alone in that. Certainly not alone in that. It's like I go to Joe as my, you know, approval board of like, yeah, I think it's like this, can you just co-sign that for me? And she's like, co-sign, done, out of it.
I co-sign all the stuff for her. But even at like, I'm a certified Cicerone, I still have moments where I'm like, ooh, am I right about that? Yeah. And so really good one the other day, and actually, Tori, I've been meaning to tell you about this and I forgot.
When I get the scoop now.
When we started the podcast, we did an episode about Germany and about Oktoberfest, and we dared to call a glass mass a stein. Got absolutely dragged by someone for it. The other week, a quite well-known lager brewery in the UK put their glasses out, made out glass, called it a stein. Not a single person corrected them, and I was like, I'm just going to be quiet about that.
You did not tell me about that, but
I'm going to be really quiet, because I think it's interesting, like the points where people question, like, and the people that get questioned and the people that don't get questioned. I always find that very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we've all probably had experiences of that, isn't it? And I think that is why often I stopped engaging with various Facebook groups, because you know, it was always me that for some reason there'd always be a guy pick me up on something and would get into some sort of rabbit hole thread, and it would just end up with me being attacked basically for having an opinion, and there really didn't seem to be any other explanation about the fact that person didn't like the fact that a woman had an opinion on beer.
I've seen that, and then it's like that's I mean, I've seen examples firsthand where, you know, somebody's really nitpicky with someone that, you know, but then it comes to like another, you know, that's just like another man post something and they go, cool, I really like this beer as well, and you're like, hang on, like, you know, the style guidelines that they're talking about on, like, there's something about what's described that's like factually actually not particularly correct, but like but that's okay. And I've seen that firsthand, and I've been involved in that firsthand, and it is incredibly frustrating.
But I think in a way
that, so I've stopped engaging as well.
Yeah, I know, but I think in a way all of us here are sort of generally probably take the negatives and turn them into positives. You know, actually, let's go and create our own thing. You know, like me, I'm going to put on my own beer festival, and I'm going to make sure that, you know, we champion the everyone welcome initiative, that we're family friendly in the day sessions, you know, that we have no music in the first session on a Friday to accommodate sort of other folks. Nice. You know, like I can do all of these things myself, really. So, you know, the same with Tash and Joe and Tori and you two, you know, we've just sort of gone, actually, we're going to go out and do our own thing and make a really positive thing out of this and create our own communities. So I try to see the positive in these things, really.
Definitely. And Tori, just coming back to what you were saying, like, you know, how you don't feel like you're within the industry, but without the consumer, beer doesn't exist. Like, there are brewers want other brewers to like their beers, but beers brewed for, you know, enjoyment. It's pretty much become a commodity within, like, you know, the UK culture. So yeah, I feel that, like, whenever you question yourself a little bit, it'll be like, like, without the consumer, there wouldn't really be the industry, and it wouldn't have gone through so much growth. And then also, like, you know, I feel that the more it's okay to kind of question yourself, because then I'm always like, even if I feel I've drank a style time and time again, I get out I love collecting craft beer books, and the more that are written by women, the more I'm like, I have to get that, even though I probably have a book on that subject by someone else, I'm going to get this one. So I just, you know, try and read a chapter about that style and maybe cross-reference different chapters, and I'm just like, oh, I forgot about that, or I didn't recall that the first time I read that, and it becomes like so you sort of cement your understanding, because, you know, styles are evolving so much, and I also think, you know, there's a lot of American breweries recreating British styles, and British folk creating American or, you know, European styles. So I think it's quite nice to reflect back on sort of the rules and this, you know, the actual, you know, certified, you know, styles and information, plus seeing what's being created nowadays and appreciating how that's evolving, which is quite fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Such a good tip.
I was gonna say, I definitely do that, where it's like, when I do question myself, I'm like, actually, let me go back and let me look, and then I'll go like, okay, what hops are in it, and then I start looking up, you know, the hops, because I might go like, okay, style wise, there's something that's a little bit different about this style, and then I go, okay, what hops were used, and I start looking at the hops, and I go, oh, actually, well, maybe it's because this hop is being used and it's bringing this element that you typically don't find in that style. And I do find it really interesting and fascinating and fun. It becomes a hindrance when you want to talk about it, and then you're afraid to talk about it, because you're afraid that, like, okay, if I say the wrong thing, it's like you're jumping into the Shark Tank sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the positive of that is, actually, I find that, like, the nerdy side of it, for lack of a better way to describe it, quite fun and interesting. And I like seeing how two styles with two different sets of hops in it, like the same style, two different sets of hops, can taste so varied, and that's what makes beer so interesting. And like you said, seeing a British brewery trying to do like their interpretation of an American style, and an American brewery doing their interpretation of like a traditional British style, is really, really interesting. That is, for me, that is part of the fun, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Can't say too much, because it's probably not for me to say. However, back in March, when we did this sort of online event for Sheffield Beer Week, and it was kind of like how to research or start a beer research project. So we had Dr. Christina Wade, who's brilliant. She's based in Ireland, but has American roots, and she's just phenomenal. So I'd recommend anyone to go and find Dr. Christina Wade out. But she, so there was her, Ron Patterson, oh God, I'm trying to think who else, or Tim, that does the Brewery History Society, and a couple of other people on. And she's mentioned that she's going to be doing a book, which hopefully will be out next year, more around women in beer. So that'd be something to look forward to, Tash, and everybody.
Yeah, I have to keep an eye.
Yeah, I
on
follow her. She's really interesting.
I can't remember her Twitter handle. Maybe we can share it afterwards.
We'll find it.
I just went to go try to Google, and then I was like, oh, just leave the name up and I'll look for it after.
We'll
add it to the show notes so everyone can find it.
We'll add it to the show note. It's not her name, but we'll get it shared afterwards, because everyone should follow her, because she just does some brilliant research in this field and in the wider field of fermentation.
Amazing.
This
beer does exactly what it says on the tin, by the way.
It's making me more jealous.
Maple, pecan. It's exactly what I'm getting. It is delicious.
Oh, good. We kind of wanted to make like an accessible, because the birthday's in November, it's more wintry. I wanted to do sort of a wintry beer, but we wanted to do like an accessible, flavored, stronger stout, a bit of a guilty pleasure, something that's sort of to bring people in into, the bigger stout sphere, as it were. But I'm really pleased how it came out. We were all a bit nervous because I don't think Wildcard have ever brewed a beer like this before. It's all of us have been kind of learning together, which has been quite a journey. But it's been really well received, which I'm pleased about.
How did you choose the flavors that were going to go into it?
Oh well, so to sort of make it accessible, we have used sort of natural flavorings. And Jaeger, basically, when we went down on the original brew day, which is sort of beginning of October, so we sort of kicked off the brew day, obviously mixing the malts together and getting that sort of mashed in, and basically Tasha Manuela pretty much dug out most of the mash tun because a friend of mine turned up, and I ended up being half of it.
You're like, oh, sorry, I have to go.
Jules put all the malt in. I just kind of joined while they were sparging, and I took all the malts out with Manuela.
Yeah.
Their division of labour.
It was your birthday beer, so it's like that's the.
I know. I just feel bad. It's just coincidentally a really old friend of mine's moved to Walthamstow, and my cousin also lives in Walthamstow randomly. And I also discovered my neighbour in Sheffield is from Walthamstow.
Oh, wow.
So there's a random connection with Walthamstow and Sheffield going on. But yeah, so we sort of did that, and then we went after we transferred the wort and got everything in the kettle and everything, and sort of left it to the Wildcard brewing team to continue. So Asa, who's the lead brewer, I think he was doing a lot of the work that day alongside us. We went off and had a coffee nearby, and we sort of discussed on this big list of all these different natural flavorings, and I was really inspired. I got a little bit obsessed with flapjacks, if I'm honest, Joe and Tori, and I just couldn't stop saying the word flapjack stout. So it was kind of meant to be an inspired sort of, gooey flapjack kind of, recipe, really, because there's lots of oats in the malt bill. So that's kind of where some of the flapjack element came from. So we sort of kicked a few different ideas about. I think Jaeger and the team ordered some of the natural flavorings. They did a little bit of a test, trying different combinations out. So it was quite exciting when the beer turned up, because I hadn't tried the finished beer. So it's always really nerve-wracking. It literally turned up on the day of the birthday weekend.
Oh no.
I know. And had to obviously, get everything ready, clean all the lines, get the beer on, first pour of the beer. And obviously I should have known that, it was all going to be fine. It was beautiful. And I've kicked like 40 litres of the beer in about five days. Went through about 40 litres.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well done. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I just want to show, I'll just not let people so the label, so Ellie that works at Wildcard's done a really good job. So she's kind of scours various public domain artwork.
Okay.
And she found this whole book from the Edwardian era that basically was all about people dressing cats up.
I love this so much.
Yeah, so this is a real picture from an Edwardian book of a cat dressed up as a queen.
I love it.
Because if, again, there's another Twitter reference, but there's a Twitter account called Cats of Yore, and it basically shares all this old, old paintings and all sorts of old photographs of like women with their cats, or cats stealing food off tables, in old paintings. So I'm a bit obsessed with cats of yours. So it was kind of inspired by that. And obviously the new Hop Hideout logo features a cat. Well, it features our cat, really. So I've got a little black cat called Chuckles. So that's she's on our logo. So it was kind of all inspired by that, really.
That was going to be literally my next question, was where did the artwork come from? And that is that's a better story than I could have even asked for. Like,
again,
that is
it was all like it wasn't just, it was me kind of saying, oh, here's my inspiration, and then obviously Ellie going away and finding things and showing me stuff. So again, it's difficult, right? A collaboration beer, I know as a few of you know, it's a bit of it is like a baby in itself. You have this idea and you sort of share it, and then it sort of has its own life, and it becomes its own thing, and it's quite obviously you especially if it's your collab, you hold it quite close, but essentially you are kind of like, oh, here's my
you're like,
collab.
Please like it. please just like it.
I was before we actually started the podcast, I was telling Tori and Joe, like, it was just so organic how the beer came into fruition. Obviously you had a lot of ideas that you pitched in the original email thread, Jules, but I was mainly chiming up to say, oh, I love that idea, yes, like, happy to support. And it was just a dream to, I hadn't seen Jules for quite a while until we saw each other at the brew day. We, during the pandemic, Crafty Beer Girls had the Zoom meetups, which is what Jules would join us on. Like, it was every month from from the April after everything went into lockdown, all the way through, I think almost till the summertime. We had a one in-person meetup in London, but then they put the rule of 6, so we were like, okay, can't meet up, so back to the Zoom ups, which we still continue to do, but it's just so nice to finally see your friend in real life. And that was at the brew day, so it was such a dreamy day, and then we went to the pub and I got to meet your daughter. So yeah, it's like, it was such a great celebration, and the beer is literally the queen.
I was gonna say, the name I Am the Queen, did that come before you got the label design, or was that post getting the photo for the label?
It was kind of post getting the design, actually. I think that there is a reference to that on the picture, I think so, from the original source. So it's sort of, the picture came with the beer name, but because we're all queens, that's how I feel. We're all queens, doing our thing. So it kind of felt relevant, and it still feels relevant. I'm really, really, really proud how Jager's sort of steered the ship on this one, and how we've all kind of come together, like Tasha said, quite organically about it. Really pleased how it's come out.
I do feel like, just looking at it, like the flavor profile, the photo on it, the name of it, all of it just feels like it just makes sense. Like, I don't know, just from seeing it, I just go, yeah, this feels like it all just makes sense, and that it is how it should be. I'm so excited. I wish I was not ill.
The other thing that we did was because obviously that we've had 2 years on and off of the pandemic and everything afterwards, so it does make you kind of want to go and see people and travel if you can, obviously, but I kind of used it as a bit of an excuse to do kind of like a bit of a travel, and do a Crafty Beer Girls meetup in person. Nice. So we had a Sheffield launch on the Saturday, sort of middle of November, and then the Thursday after, there was a Crafty Beer Girls meetup in Jager and Wildcard's new pub, Tavern on the Hill in Walthamstow. That's just about a 10-minute walk from the brewery. So we did like a Sheffield and a London launch, so I get to feel like a rock star with my beer and two gig locations. But it was lovely to actually meet, all the people that, or a lot of the people. There were new people that came along on the night, which was nice as well, actually, new women that joined. But it was lovely to sort of meet people face to face that I'd chatted to on Zoom all throughout the pandemic. Tavern on the Hill's like quite a established big double fronted pub. But I think obviously Jager and the team are doing quite a lot to bring it back into use by the community, because I think it's had a bit of a potted history. She was sort of telling us about you might not have gone in the pub a while ago because it was a bit dodge. So it reminds you that pubs come with this sort of long history before you kind of become the landlord landlady kind of thing. But she was posting, just to Jager name check in, she was posting a photo of her and Stormzy hanging out at Tavern on the Hill quite recently. So,
So she does it as well.
She does it as well, yeah.
It's got to be really complicated, like when you because I like just thinking about it and thinking about pub culture over here, which I mean it might be hard for people in the US to, if they're listening, to sort of understand, because the pub culture is very different. But that is quite an interesting thing to kind of raise, of that, the background on a certain location. You probably would never think about it as a consumer that's going in someplace, but actually taking a step back when you say it like that. Because I mean, I think of places that I go, I wouldn't go in there, and I wouldn't feel comfortable going in there, and I wouldn't even know if the place had changed hands, because in my mind, that place is already off limits to me. And so that must be actually quite a challenge. If you pick up some place that has a bit of a dodgy past, how do you turn that image around? That's quite an interesting thing that I probably never would have thought about.
I kind of do the opposite sometimes. Like there's lots of pubs in London that obviously had kind of like a gangstery background, especially in East London. And now they're like 180 degrees, completely different. And I kind of look them up and then go visit them to kind of see like they are a bit of almost like they're pictures of what they used to look like, and they look exactly the same. They're preserved beautifully, but they're serving a gastropub menu. There's a few craft beers on tap, and it's not like what was making the news back in the day. And like in the pub, I think it's Pub Archives, the sort of stories that you read, it's just like quite interesting, especially in London, how many pubs have sort of developed in such a different way, and now they're basically the safe pillars of the community, rather than kind of rough and scary places to go.
Nice. Support your local pubs, everybody. Got to keep them going right now.
It's given me so much more to think about. That's like really interesting, that I never would have thought about prior to this conversation, because I guess I don't even think about it on like the scale of London. I'm thinking of just like local to me, and going like, you go, okay, here's like 3 or 4 locals, and you kind of go, that's the one I go to, that one I'd feel uncomfortable at, that sort of thing. And it's just given me a whole new thought to think about. So thank you, that's a really interesting conversation.
I mean, I think Jager's doing a really unique thing. She's sort of really embracing like a heritage and stuff, isn't she? And so the sort of doing like Jamaican Sunday dinners, which I'm sure she was tweeting about the fact that it was like booked up till April 2023 because it went viral on TikTok, and then Stormzy came for one, and then so it's like the place to be on a Sunday. But I did try some of the food there because the kitchen was in action when we were there for the Crafty Beer Girls meetup, and I had like fried plantain and like amazing. Sort of mac and cheese, and it was delicious. So the food was was really good, and so I think it's going to be onwards and upwards for the pub, but I'm sure she's going to be knackered. And obviously, as we all know, with the energy crisis and cost of living and everything else that's circling, it's a tough time to be stewarding a pub at the moment. So fair play to them, really, for going for it, because it is like their local pub, really. So if they're investing back in the community, which I don't think people also realise, when people take on pubs, it is such a community asset. So there's much more to it than you know, the history, the stories, the people, you know, births, deaths, marriages, everything that's gone on. You know, I think that's why we kind of all love the pub as well, because of that, I guess, mystique and the stories and everything as well. But yeah,
I mean, like Jo said, that's all the more, like you said about the energy crisis, that's all the more reason to support your locals, or when you go someplace new, check out a new local to yours, because you could be massively helping them out. And like we said, I mean, it's sort of like, for us, like culturally, those are like central locations for so many things. So it's like, even if it's just going once, even if you don't have the budget and you go once a month for a drink, like that is, you know, once a month that you could be helping someone that's really sort of struggling at the moment, and trying to do a lot for the community, as you said. I mean, speaking of locations, Jules, like Hop Hideout is in such an interesting location, and I don't think I'd ever been into a area quite like commune before, like prior to going to Hop Hideout, and I thought that concept was so incredibly interesting. And I was just wondering, like, you know, when it came to picking locations, like, did you know you wanted a spotlight? For anyone that doesn't know, commune's kind of like, there's like multiple different vendors, like food vendors, and then like Hop Hideouts there, and then there's a bookshop, and you basically sit down at a table. You can do a, you know, QR code, and you order from your table for all these different places, and it's quite good if you're going out with a larger group of people, or people that have different eating requirements, because everyone can kind of get their own thing to the table without having to pick a specific type of restaurant or anything. And I love the fact that obviously with Hop Hideout being there, it's like, cool, I can get food, and then I can get a craft beer to drink with it, which if I went to a different restaurant, I might not have been able to get. And it's just a really cool location. I've been to similar since, and I just thought, you know, is that a place that you sought out the type of place to be at, or was it just like fortuitous that you happened to go, oh, that's the spot that's open, I'll go there, sort of thing?
It's kind of a bit of a story of two halves, really, because I mean, there's kind of lots. It's going to be a complex answer, sorry.
Right, we like complex answers.
First.
I do love this story.
So I've worked in beer for quite a long time. Like a lot of people, I've worked in bar jobs and kind of loved it, but didn't think it was a career, and sort of left, you know, tried to get a career in, went to university and sort of had another life and another career, and then ended up coming back into beer in sort of around 2007. I ended up getting a job at a really large sort of FMCG brewery, who had a sales office based in Leeds. And then I worked for them for about 7-8 years, something like that. But I did everything from like technical support. So if your pub was having a problem with the equipment, they'd give my team a call. We'd talk them through a spreadsheet, tell them to turn it off and back on again. If that didn't work, we'd schedule an engineer to go out and look at the equipment. But I did sales, procurement, logistics, forecasting. Ended up on like a really big implementation project to transform Burton Brewery. So the main brewery was in Burton-upon-Trent. And I was on this really stressful sort of 18-month systems implementation project. And it was probably the most stressful thing in my life, other than the pandemic, running a business in the pandemic. And I guess the more I was at this big multinational brewery, the more I was getting into beer, and the more kind of my passion for beer was doing this, and my interest in where I was working was doing that. And then other things were happening. I was constantly getting battered back for promotions. Oh, you can't do that, you don't have this, you don't have that. You know, when you're in a male dominated sphere, it is very challenging to be heard and to be seen as management material, because there's a specific idea that those male managers have about what other managers should look like. And it just got really frustrating. I had an incident of a really nasty misogynistic bullying, and it kind of just got to the point where I just thought, you know what, I'm done here. I'm going to take all the positives that I've had from my, huge learning curve, looked after millions of pounds worth of stock, access, to sort of all the systems and forecasting and knowledge of beer logistics and procurement and everything. I'm going to take all those positives, and you know what, I'm going to go and do my own thing. And it was kind of that, again, taking a negative and turning it into a positive. I kind of thought, actually, I'm going to go and do this myself. I'll be my own boss. I can do all of these things that I know I'm capable of, that you've told me that I can't do and that I'm not capable of. I'm going to show you that I can do all of these things. And I guess it kind of lit a bit of a fire under me. And that's kind of when I went off and set up Hop Hideout. But I didn't have a lot of money. I set up Hop Hideout on about £5,000. It was very much like a pop-up shop. And we started in the back of an antique centre in an area called Abbeydale, which is near Abbeydale Brewery. So sort of south-ish of Sheffield City Centre, not very far. You could walk to the city centre in like 20 minutes. But quite a vibrant little area, quite bohemian, lots of interesting things going on. People into like food and drink. So we would do like a weekend pop-up, make a bit of money, sell a bit of beer. I was still working a job at, that job at that time, but, absolutely hating it. Coming home after 10 hours and of being shouted at, and, and then kind of investing that negativity into Hop Hideout. And eventually, we, because Will, my partner, was helping me at that time, even though it was kind of my passion and my sort of driving force, we were sort of doing it together initially. So we, sold beer, reinvested the money, and then so when we launched in 2013, it was very much kind of like, say, this pop-up in the back of an antique centre, which was, what I loved about it was quite magical. People would walk into an antique centre, there's an old piano, that, there's kind of like a modernist sculpture. Oh, what's that back there? It's beer. What's going on here? And they'd come into our bit and they're like, oh wow, it's like a little emporium of magical beer. Amazing. And at that time it was kind of only a few years since the Kernel had launched. It was quite a sort of a small but really interesting, growing, like what we now call craft beer, but we probably referred to as like microbrewed back then. But it was, you felt like you were part of something. It was part of the community. And then we just kind of organically grew. There was a cafe next door to the antique centre. So we moved into there in 2015. And that was kind of when it was the idea of what I had in my mind became reality. So I was kind of inspired by like the Belgian beer scene, where you go to a Belgian beer shop, there'd be like a little table you could sit at. There'd always be someone really interesting there that had like life stories and funny jokes, and like then tell you about the beer. And I was kind of inspired by that and that Belgian beer culture, I guess. And so we had the beer shop with like a little table in it, so we called it like a tasting room. And actually in 2015 at the time, that wasn't happening in the UK. We were like literally probably the first or one of 5 venues that were doing that, and which now it seems like it's a thing, isn't it? It's very much a model. People have beer shop and tasting rooms, or whatever format they sort of call it. But in 2015 that wasn't a thing. Like, we were one of the first people to do it, and we actually had to like challenge the licensing, because they didn't get it. Like, they were like, but you're a shop, but you're allowing people to stand up and have a drink like a pub, but you're not a pub. So we went through quite a long process with Sheffield licensing to actually get licensed for that concept. And we've probably put the groundwork in for then people to really go and copy that in a way, and for them to run with it. But we were one of the first to actually go to the local licensing and say, this is the concept, this is what we want to do. So, I feel kind of quite, looking back over 9 years now, it's challenging sometimes to, remember those actual big achievements. And that was a big achievement. I think we are kind of one of the forerunners of and I knew I wasn't a micropub. I talked to Martin Hillier actually from the micropub movement before I set up my business. I remember having a phone call with him when I was working in Burton upon Trent. And though I love cask beer, for me, my passion was Belgian beer and world beer and, all this other like beer style, myriad of wonderful beer styles and cultures. And I felt like the micropub kind of was obviously specifically kind of honing in on English cask ale culture. And I wanted to be more broader and do this other thing. So I kind of stuck to my guns and said, right, I'm a beer shop and tasting room. That's my thing. And I've kind of always stuck with that. And here we are 9 years later. So that's I think I should stop there because I could go on maybe for at least 10 minutes.
No, I think that is incredibly interesting, to be honest. It like I always find that when I've gone into a shop and it's not something I've like a garden center, like I can give an example of like I was at a garden center end of November. My parents had come over from the US, they were visiting, so I was taking them to the garden center to pick out some Christmas stuff before they went back so that we could like have them around to help me pick out decorations, etc. And I remember my mum went to go look at something specific, so me and my husband left my mum and my dad to do something else, and we went looking for something in another section. And I remember walking into that and then seeing like a thing of beer, and I was like, what is that? And I looked and it's like a whole stand of like Phantom Brewery beer. And I just didn't expect to see it. I was like, oh, cool. It just threw me off guard. And it was like I was in Kent and we went to one of the castles there. And again, I went to the gift shop there and there was like Time and Tide everywhere. And it's that thing of like, I'm at a national heritage site or I'm at a garden centre. And here I am seeing these like breweries that I recognize now. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So it must be like, I can't even imagine going to like an antiques shop and then all of a sudden there's like beer at the back. I'd be like, I am never leaving. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, to sort of, I suppose I should finish because we haven't got to the food hall, have we? So some of this has been organic. I haven't had a lot of money to start the business. I've had to sort of do, find a way to make it happen. And some of it has been coincidental, I guess, but so the cafe place in Abbeydale Road where we were, Hop Hideout, beer shop and tasting room, like I would still be there actually if it wasn't for the fact that the new business owners came along and bought the building and then basically didn't renew our lease. Which was quite a heartbreaking moment when you've been somewhere and built up a business, but as a small business, and if you don't own the bricks and mortar, having a contract, even if I had a contract that had another 5 years on it, they could have still chucked me out. You see it happening time and time again. I mean, it's happening in Sheffield at the Lead Mill, which is an old music venue. Exactly the same scenario is happening at the moment. There's a big campaign to support the actual people that created, the community and music of the Lead Mill, to stay in the building, because the new people that have bought the building are trying to chuck the Lead Mill out and do the Lead Mill themselves, which is really shameful. So I was in a situation where I was kind of needed to move, and it just so happened I got approached by this new food hall that we're going to be opening in the city centre of Sheffield. And so I kind of went with it. But part of the reason I went with it, which I still believe in, even though like I love the little specialist brick and mortar beer shop that I had, you find this with a lot of specialist places, that sometimes people find it a barrier to entry. And I'm always trying to sort of like broaden the scene, get more people into beer from all walks of life, all backgrounds. And I come from a music background. I've worked in a lot of music and record shops, and I've seen a lot of this. There is a barrier to walking through that door sometimes to a specialist place, because people maybe, rightly or wrongly, feel that they might not be welcomed, or they don't know enough, and all of this sort of stuff. So you spend your time trying to make sure people know that they can just walk in and you have the door open and make. However, in the food hall, there literally is no barrier. There's no doorstep to walk over. You're in the food hall, and I get the full sort of range of people that have no idea who I am, even though I've been around for 9 years. They have no idea about Hop Hideout, but you know what? They're like, oh, what's this? There's fridges, there's beer, tell me about it. And it's such a great way actually to engage with kind of getting outside the craft beer bubble and engaging with other people. And you see, people from all backgrounds, all nationalities, all genders. It's a really kind of, it's the space you want to be at if you do want to get out of the craft beer bubble, which is exactly kind of the next step that I wanted to do. However, I've been there for 4 years, 2 of it through a pandemic, and I am looking for my own place again. But I'd kind of like to do the two. So just going to put it out there into the ether.
Hop Hideout too.
So put it into the universe.
Yeah, put it into the universe. But I would like to have my own bricks and mortar place again, that I can, curate the music, have that real personal interaction with people, which works especially well if you're doing beer tastings, which we sort of specialised in. It's quite difficult to do beer tastings at the food hall because it's quite noisy and there's lots going on. So there's really good things and obviously other things that are more challenging. So 2023, I would like to sort of, expand and have 2 sites and do it both, really.
That
Amazing.
Sounds like a really great thing to Hop Hideouts in the new year.
As is like putting it, I feel like as Joe and I always do when we're doing interviews with people, it's like we're going to try to manifest this as much as we can, because literally that universe. As Tasha said, like, that does sound amazing, to be honest, because the food hall, as you've explained it really does make sense, in the sense of like no barrier to entry in that sense, and they have a normal bar there. So if you are a person that's like, oh, I'm not sure, there's always the standard bar where you can get standard things, but somebody might just go, oh, I've never heard of that before. Normally I would order this. What do you recommend? And they might leave having tried something that they wouldn't have tried and go, actually, baby steps, maybe I'll try from that specific brewery again.
Completely.
And that's all you can ask for. Or they go, actually, I didn't really like it, wasn't for me, I'll just go and I'll order my standard Carling. I still think
it's amazing. Like, I've travelled quite a bit, and I've been to food halls in Holland and New York and everything, and I've not been to one single food hall where there's a place that has 200 beers that's selling like Belgian lambics, barrel-aged imperial stouts, like local, like great local beer, but that has like a full full
range,
BJCP, if you want a beer styles, you know what I mean? It's like, I think that's really unique. And like I've got aged Orval, come and buy some, like try aged Orval off me.
I just want to say, like even London, there's the Mercato Metropolitano. It has amazing food from all over the world, and they have really good bar by the Italian job, who do, like, you have Maurizio, or they used to, I don't even know if it's still focused on Italian craft beer, but it's maybe like maximum 25 styles of beer, and that's in London, like one of the biggest indoor food markets, whereas Commune, really, like, I really enjoyed visiting recently, and your shops there is just, it's everything that I love about beer shops, plus had a taste.
The hardest part was like not trying to buy everything the last time I was there, because I was like, there's so many good things. And it was like, I think you even had wine, and it was like really interesting wine that I'd never seen before. And then I was like, I've never been so torn about like, this is how much money that I should be spending, because Joe and I were there to do something else that I was like, I need to make sure I'm not spending too much money.
Yeah, because we were up for like Sheffield Beer Week stuff, which was cool, which is good. But yeah, we do. I mean, obviously I specialize in beer, but I am very passionate about cider as well, especially British cider. So that there's lots of little producers like Ross on Wye, Little Pomona, everyone kind of great in the British cider scene. But then I have like nice, interesting low intervention wines. I kind of see it as that sweet spot. You've got kind of like your funky beers and your farmhouse ciders and your low intervention wine, and like the little bit in the middle is kind of like Hop Hideout, really. So
it's just like 2 locations would be brilliant, because that would be like your no barrier to entry, get the people in, get the people interested, and then your own brick and mortar being like the place that you specifically curate the whole atmosphere and what you want, and it brings people there.
What I really miss about the old shop is that so many people used to hire the venue out for like their birthday, for the wedding parties, and like that, really, like they were the moments that I just love the fact that people wanted and chose to sort of celebrate those special occasions, like in my beer business, drinking good beer, like. It just, honestly, it makes my heart just sing with joy, and they're the things that I miss a little bit, really. I mean, that's kind of, obviously it's, we love the beer, but it's also the people drinking the beer and the conversation over the beer. That's, what is so great about it. But I've just cracked open another beer. Sorry, people.
It's all right, go for it. I've switched to water for anyone listening. I'm getting real wild. I've gone water with some ice cubes in it.
But I'm sticking with wildcard. I've got because we were talking about it, the International Women's Collab Brew Day. So it's an apricot saison.
Oh, nice. Oh, all right. Well, I'll crack open the Taurus, which is a damson sour. Then go on. Then I'll have a second one.
No, I think it's totally about the people as well. I think like I've said it before, and I don't know if I've said it on the podcast or just in conversation, but I feel like you can have a beer that is a decent beer, totally fine, but it's almost made better if it's had in the right situation with the right people. It's like something that if you're drinking on your own, you go, oh yeah, that's good, but like all of a sudden when you're having it in a certain moment with the right people and the right conversation, you're like, well, this is my favorite beer now. Like it just has that memory of having this really good good connection and the good shared moment, that you just go, this is now like one of my favorite beers of the year. And it might not be something that is the most like complex or the most like, it's just how you've had it in that moment. And that's what's like really great about beers. I always buy I actually prefer sharing my beers with people. Like I know some people like, oh, I want it all for me and everything, but like for me, if it's something that I think sounds really, really interesting, like I can't wait to share it with my husband or share it with Joe or share it with like a group of friends, even if they're not into craft beer, because I'm like, I want to just share this. I want to have somebody to talk to about how good and interesting it is. I don't know if everyone takes that approach. I think some people just are like, drink your stuff because this is all for me. But for me, I love sharing it personally.
It's what we were saying about beer being community, and like the beer spaces being the center of the community. Like that's so important. It's something that I think we missed a lot of during the pandemic, and it's really good that that's now coming back. So we've had you for an hour already, but we'll keep going. If you've got the time, we've got the time. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Indie Beer Feast?
Yeah, so the next one is it basically happens in March, so it's like the first weekend in March. It's kind of the precursor to sort of Sheffield Beer Week, so it's the preamble. Nice. And it started off as like a one-day beer festival. It used to actually be in a really old, like a 1920s picture house, old cinema up Abbeydale Road where the old Hop Hideout used to be. So it was in this beautiful old 1920s cinema for 2018, 2019, we moved to 2 days because it went really well. 2020 was the last, I feel like it was the last National Beer Festival before the pandemic, actually whilst the pandemic was happening.
Just squeaked it in before we got locked down.
Well, like it was such a, it's so, I still haven't processed a lot of things from the pandemic, to be honest, but it, like, I had no idea about it, as did a lot of people had no idea about the virus or anything COVID related. And so we had Indie Beer Feast. It was fantastic. It was, like I said, this old cinema. There was about 20 breweries pouring there. Wonderful 2 days. And then obviously in the following few days, events started to get cancelled. Sheffield City Council people were telling me that there's a virus, there's something going on. Kind of by the end of Sheffield Beer Week, maybe about like I say, a few things got cancelled, a few things still went ahead, where people were unsure what this was, what was going on. And about a week later, I think hospitality was completely shut down. So I remember going into what was the Devonshire Cat, which was a pub, used to be run by Abbeydale Brewery. And I was there to sort of have a bit of a wind down, Sunday dinner, enjoy collab beer that a group called Out and About, who sort of Michael and Heather run this sort of LGBTQ plus friendly like beer community group in Sheffield, and we'd sort of done a collaboration beer. So like it was such a wonderful, I went in there to try the beer, had food, it was lovely. And then literally the next day it was, obviously what we now know as COVID, and all of the realities started. So I'd gone from a celebration to literally fighting for people in hospitality's survival. Like 2 weeks later, I like it just absolutely, it's still very difficult to sort of compute and comprehend kind of what went on in that celebration, downward sort of misery of the reality of hospitality shut down and everything. So anyway, so I mean, it's obviously going to be difficult to talk about what's gone on in the pandemic in a short space of time over a podcast, isn't it? Really, could talk about a lot of these from different ages. I know. But anyway, so we had a virtual Indie Beer Feast in 2021, because I sort of thought that there might be the potential to have it, but obviously realised through the various iterations that it wasn't the common sense thing to do, and definitely not definitely not the right thing to do either, from my perspective anyway. So we had like a virtual celebration, did like a box tasting, and had like an Instagram party. And then we managed to come back in March 2022 of this year. And I have the festival, but we had to move venues to like a new city centre location called Trafalgar Warehouse. And then this next year, in March 2023, we're staying at the same venue, but we've got a bit more space. So we're going to be doing Indie Beer Feast again there. So it'd be lovely if you could come up, actually. I don't know if anyone fancies another trip up.
Yeah, I think
see what we can do.
I feel like when we saw you at the tail end, so we saw you like during the brew day, but then we saw you as well at the tail end of Indie Beer Feast. And you were like, we are tired, we're having beers, I will see you tomorrow. Like, we saw you for a little bit at the end of the day before International Women's Collaboration Brew Day the next day. I feel like that's what it was.
I know. Well, ironically, I've never been able to go to an International Women's Collab Brew Day because it's always obviously clashes with Sheffield Beer Week and Indie Beer Feast. So like I've never been able to go, and this year was the first time that I actually managed to get to, and I went to two, obviously the Lost Industry one that Helen Faye arranged, and then the one at Heist, and obviously you two were doing the tasting that day as well. So I actually managed two this year.
It was such a long day. It was a long day, and I don't know how you did it after doing a long day. the day before as well. So well done on that. And that's what I found out, speaking of your birthday beers, that's when you were telling me as well about how historically you did one of the Life Aquatic was the theme of your birthday, and I loved it because you called one like Steve Yuzu or something.
Steve Yuzu, yeah.
And so that made me laugh so much.
Over the years of Hop Hideout, the beer shop business, we've sort of always had like a birthday party, and I don't take myself too seriously. I like to have a bit of a giggle, like to have a bit of a laugh. You know, as Tasha said before, it is just beer sometimes, and you know, it's nice to just remember and have, you know, joyful, fun times, isn't it, where you don't take yourself too seriously. So yeah, one of our birthdays we'd had a big Bill Murray inspired fancy dress party. So everyone came as Bill Murray characters from various films, and all of the beer collaborations were Bill Murray themed beers. So we had Steve Yuzu, which was like a Yuzu Brut IPA, was one of them, and Groundhog Day, I think we did with Turning Point. We definitely did an elusive brew. I think we did 3 Strikes, and we did like an elusive brew. There was a few more anyway. There was a Lost Industry Twinkie beer as well. Yeah, it was a bit bittersweet actually, because that birthday we'd just found out a week before that I had to leave the venue. So we didn't tell anybody. So we celebrated the birthday and had like a wonderful time. Yeah. But obviously I knew deep down that I was going to leave. And then a few days later, I told people. So it was a little bit bittersweet, really. Yeah. But there you go. That's life, isn't it? You know,
it's all worked out.
Happen, rubbish things happen.
I was going to say, it's all worked out in
still
the way that
strong.
Yeah, you're still going.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, well. I think that's small business. Sometimes it's like it's so hard running a business in any country, but specifically in this country it's really difficult. And then you put layers on top of that, if being a female business owner, and you know, it's been a challenge and a roller coaster. And but yeah, can I do a little toast? I feel like I should be toasting, still being here. Us all having this joyous moment over beer and /water. And cheers to everybody.
Cheers. So good. You're like proper inspirational superwoman.
I was gonna say both of you really, like Tasha and Jules, like and Joe really, like, but it's just like, it's people that like, I'm so pleased that you guys like chose to come on, because you know, obviously Crafty Beer Girls has had like such a big part for us, and obviously like meeting you, Jules, at Hop Hideout, like that was just you were like the first person to put our beer on.
I know, but this is what's great about, isn't it? Like I put your beer on at the shop, and I get to come on here, you know. It's all about collaboration, isn't it, and coalition and all of that sort of thing. But I was going to ask Tash, have you got any plans for Crafty Beer Girls next in 2023? What's the
so I guess I probably should share a bit more, but I've been a little bit starstruck just being on here, because obviously
I'll give over.
No, you know, I know both like Tori and Joe really from online, but I feel like I have possibly I feel like I've met you in person.
I think we have
at least once or twice. So but also like Jules has in my early beer career, I was doing events, and I would for a brewery I worked for a very long time, and that like I'd go to international events out of sort of like my holiday, not yet touring at them, kind of just like feeling out the cities like Copenhagen at the time, or maybe do like tap takeovers in the bars, but the brewery I was working for wasn't big enough just yet. And Jules would be there with her partner, like, you know, journaling, like blogging and writing about the experiences. And I knew about Hop Hideout, and I'd follow her, as well as like, you know, other folks like Broken Bailey, and like I do feel I don't have as much time to read all the beer blogs or join all the podcasts and listen in, but I know which ones, if I have a spare moment, that's what I'm clicking on and like listening to. So like love what you're both doing. Have huge respect for Jules. So when, you know, we were asked to join in on the birthday beer, it was like a no-brainer. Really, it's just like anything to have a beer with you, or to raise a glass to you, or to spend a moment with you. And that's pretty much how I hope. There's like Jules says, there's sometimes quite a lot of negativity, and there are lots of lows to the beer industry sometimes. It's growing so fast, it's evolving so fast. With any industry, there's going to be some sort of, it shouldn't be, but there is discrimination, there's sexism, there's misogyny. And there is sometimes a bit of a scramble to be in certain roles. And with Crafty Beer Girls, we're just trying to, the way I see it is like I'm trying to keep the ethos more about positivity. So, you know, yes, there's sexist branding, but we just don't buy those beers. Let's celebrate the good branding. Let's go to those venues for a meetup, which, you know, we think they're, you know, they've got everyone's welcome sort of policy in place. No one feels unsafe. So in the new year, I guess, just kind of raising more awareness about the Manchester fraction. So Chess, who works for Neptune, a great brewery, also co-founded by a woman, Jules, Julie. So Chess she works remotely. She lives in Manchester, so she's running the Manchester fraction of Crafty Beer Girls. She's been a long time London CBG, so kind of is just basically an extension of everything we do down here. So she's doing a really great job of that. So if there are any women kind of near to Manchester realms or able to commute in for those meetups, then we're posting about those. I'm hoping to do something big. I think we might be 10 years old next year.
Ooh.
I think maybe that was even this. You know, you lose track during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But we're long overdue some sort of big event. I would love to do a more centralized meetup, maybe have Ladies That Beer, which is the group that Julie from Neptune has founded. Maybe get the Brum Beer Babs over as well. There's Preston Beer Girls. There's like a few other groups like that have now developed all over the country. There's also Glas Ladies That Beer, which has another lady called Sarah who used to be part of our London CBG community. But at the same time, you know, CBG, whilst most of it goes on in London, the Facebook group is open to any beer loving woman to join. And if there's anyone out there that wants to curate their own sort of space that brings women together over a pint, a half pint, or just kind of shares some positive and just resourceful chat in or around the beer industry with beer involved, I think that's a great thing. So maybe kind of I want to do a bit more admin around that. So maybe build like a spreadsheet of who, what, where. But again, like a lot of the stuff around CBG, it's kind of done in spare time. So I kind of get a little bit anxious to say this is the plan, because those plans, I don't know what's going to be around the corner, which might, you know, put us back a couple of years like the pandemic has. But well, more collabs. We've done 2 collabs with our names on the cans at least over the last 2 years. So hopefully another collab. I know International Women's Collab Brew Day is going to be a big one this year. So for anyone that isn't following that already, both myself and Natalia for the last 3 years have been supporting Sophie Durand with that. So this year's going to be a really big occasion. So anyone that wants to participate in that would be really good to get them following the group, those pages. But yeah, I kind of feel like kind of relieved that year is ending before I start looking forward to the next one personally. But that's because this is hospitality's busiest period and I'm quite frazzled, but also just happy that it's been a good one.
Absolutely. I feel like I was just gonna say, I think like Crafty Beer Girls like have put together such a good list every year as well about like who was doing International Women's Collaboration Brew Day beers, and made it really easy to get the resources of who was doing it and, you know, where to find those beers. So it is appreciated, because sometimes it can be so difficult to stay on top of everywhere that's doing it. The funniest part about all of it is Joe and I went all the way up to Sheffield to do International Women's Collaboration Brew Day, and then I found out Double Barreled was doing
literally down the road from her.
and I was like, oh, of course. I was like, it's always a way, isn't it? But I actually had a really, really good time. So I'm glad that I didn't find out about that till later, because then I might not have got to have like a double brew day and such a good time. But it was one of the questions it's funny because Jules preempted the question I was going to ask you, which was like, are there any events that were coming up? And the main one being like, is there going to be an International Women's Collaboration Brew Day again this year? And I guess you've just answered that one. So
both Natalia, myself and Sophie are in quite, I won't say frantic, but I feel like I'm frantically reading the emails, because I've just in like the mad rush of Christmas bookings and whatever, what have you. And I'm like, I'll chime up on this like middle of December, or maybe around Christmas Day, and then we'll start hitting the road running in the new year. But yeah, I'm really excited for the one to come up. And yeah, I'm hoping actually to make double barrels this year, because I haven't made it and I'm currently living in Reading, and it would seem rude not to.
So now that I know that they did it last year and I hope they're doing it again, now I'm going to plan accordingly and go, instead of driving a few hours somewhere else, as much as I loved it and I have zero regrets on it, I might try to do one a little bit more local this next time. So
there's just so many options.
There's so many options, and you want to see
well, that's
people.
great that there's so many options, because it used to be like 2 or 3 brews, and that, I mean, that's the wonderful thing, isn't it, that it's grown, and there's you know, so many more women co-owned, or, you know, women in positions of brewing and management roles within the brewing sector. So it's wonderful to sort of see it, you know, go from a handful to, you know, to sort of double digit numbers. But I just want to say, to Tasha's credit, because I don't think a lot of people realize some of this stuff, and I know obviously Joe and Tori, you do this as well, really, and I do it under Sheffield Beer Week, but a lot of the things we're talking about, you know, we invest our time and money and our energy in things that we do for free, essentially, for the wider beer community. And I just kind of want to sort of highlight, you know, Tasha for putting all her energy and time into that project, because she's not getting paid for it. Obviously, it's about more than the money, as we all know, which is, you know, why we do a lot of these things. But yeah, I really I want Tash to know that we appreciate it, and like, you know, she's not getting paid for this. So and maybe, you know, that should be something that should be changed. You know, if we can raise money for Brave Noise collaborations, why can't we raise money for Crafty Beer Girls and other initiatives that do really positive things? You know, maybe that's something we can put into the ether as well, really. So yeah,
I'm definitely thinking about merch. I think that would be like a really easy way to not make loads of money, but kind of like get a bit of funding by having something that people can also
I mean, essentially, like, the money is going to be reinvested and used to do really positive things with, you know, but
that will need, like, Jules has already sent me some really cool branding ideas that I've like saved, so hopefully that would be a really nice sort of project for the next year. But also just anything, Tori and Joe, like if we could do some more collabs like over podcast with some CBG as well, that'd be lovely. And hopefully I'll get to meet you in real life at the next IWCBD.
Yes, absolutely.
Open invitation.
That's it. Like open invitation
to come back whenever you want.
100%. And again, we'll put that, all of this is gonna go, we're gonna like manifest it all, and it's gonna be be a really, after a very long few years, 2023, we're manifesting it to be like the best. So we'll see what happens.
I think we all need it, don't we?
Yeah,
it's going to be tough times. I mean, it is tough times, and it's going to continue to be for 12 months, isn't it? If not longer, who knows? So No, I would like to see. I have to say, I would like to see more. I'd like to see more women-owned beer businesses. That would be a big. That would be something I would love to see happen more of. Actually, I think that I'm excited to see the development in that area, really, because I just think, as well, it can broaden the horizon of the beer scene that we're in, bring different perspectives, new exciting styles or things that maybe people haven't thought about.
Different perspectives.
Yeah, exactly.
But, maybe even getting a list together of those that are already there, because I don't know if Crafty Beer Girls already have a list of bunch business, but I feel like there's some that I didn't even realize might have been ordered.
Pip at the Coven, I don't say Coven or Coven. She's does quite a lot. I don't know, Daisy at Craft Beer Newcastle, she's got like a list going on as well, but yeah, I'm excited to sort of see the development of more women-owned businesses and that sort of like pushing things forward as well, actually. So
I think that'd be really good. I also remember, I can't remember if it was at a festival this year, it was something online that I read. There was like a round table, and it was just the facts about women, like what women have done to start up their businesses. It was the brewery market, Linda and a couple of other there was a whole like round table about what it was like being a woman who owns their business, and what did you have to do, and like how like getting a loan, for example.
You can't get
so it's just all these, like, the statistics were terrifying. And during the pandemic, I did a lot of work on sort of like just chasing the grants that the venues that we have within our business are owed, from the you couldn't get the money unless you like really badgered, even though it was state government mandated. That's what the money was for. And I was thinking, like, I could probably spend some time doing this for Crafty Beer Girls, but like I'd need some information. I'd like a lot of data that I just don't have the time right now to keep. And it was just like, it was so overwhelming to think about. But then I was thinking, if you're trying to start up your own business, like having to put that, also maybe juggling a family life, kids. I personally don't have plans to have kids, don't want to have kids, but like that's another, those are other slightly more pressing commitments than maybe growing a business at one point in your life. That could be your own baby in some ways, but you need to factor all these things. It was absolutely terrifying data. So I think the more we can do to champion those businesses which are starting up, that are women owned or that are already established and are women owned, that would be great. So yeah, I'll definitely make a note of that to kind of pinpoint those resources from those other folks and share them more widely.
I think it is that balancing, and you also, what's really important is to also factor time in for yourself as well, because you can't just go from like your typical day job to trying to start up a business to bed to back to your normal day job, then try and start up your business. Like there has to be time for yourself, there has to be time for you to enjoy with the people around you that you care about as well. Like you have to take care of yourself in order to be able to take care of your business. And if it is that there's so much going on that you lose sight of having that balance, that's got to be very, very difficult, and I can't even imagine. So yeah, any resources that can be put together and shared, I think, are phenomenal. And I think honestly for me, I would love to see, I've said this before I said it to Emmet Mirakai, I think, when we spoke to Mirakai last night. I personally would love to see a Pink Boots chapter like opened up over here. Like it sounds that it's a little bit challenging to open up divisions of Pink Boots, but I think like having something even similar to that over here, that is sort of giving, helping with grants and helping with those type of like educational pieces, like that is something that's so important and helps bring more women in, and not even just bring them in. People are already there.
You see it in sports. You see this, the exact thing we're talking about is what's going on in women's sport now. So we're seeing women's sports on TV. We're seeing big investment going on in women's sports, which is what you need, so that people like Jules Scott don't have to have multiple jobs and then go and train on top. They can just train like the men and boys are allowed to do. So it needs money, it needs backing, and which is fantastic to see. What's going on in women's sports at the moment. It's like an absolute revelation, and a complete sort of change in people's attitudes and mindsets to women in sport. But it's wonderful. But we need the same support in the beer sector. Basically, we need people to get behind and say, right, we need more women in business, women do this and that. What can we do? What mentorship can we have? What money can we invest? At the moment, it's us as a community from the roots up doing it all ourselves, really. It'd be nice to see a few of the people get on board. And
mentorship alone is so important, like just so important, and not even just in the standard areas that you think, just like from all across it, like whether it be business ownership or somebody working doing like marketing in beer, not just like from a brewing aspect, but that as well. Like I just think mentorship overall is so undervalued, and how important it can be. That's
the inclusivity will be they're really great. It's predominantly focused on like people of color, but like I sign up and read all that. There's just such inspirational newsletters, and it's from like a wealth of backgrounds across hospitality. And recently Lucy Doe from the Dodo Micropub, she won awards at their award ceremony, and just the caliber of people and just their sort of like post award chats. I was just like, I just want to know more from these folk. They're I think they have a really good mentorship program, which is what you inspired me to bring them up. But they're if anyone wants to find out more or wants just even to get some nuggets of like good insight, their newsletters are really worthwhile.
I'm sure we can probably share that in the notes as well for anyone that's interested.
The show notes
just
are going to be
up.
Wealth of information for this episode. Just so much info. Go and check out those show notes because they're going to have all the things in them this time around.
It's going to be like an appendix.
Yeah.
How's the Damson sour been, Jo?
It's lovely. It's really fruity, but then there's that touch of like just acidity that keeps it really drinkable. It's lovely. It's not like, I'm a sour drinker, so I would say it's not very, very sour, but it's like I think it's nicely like gateway sour, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's got that. Good.
It's got a good balance to it. I'm enjoying it. How was yours?
It's really nice. It's I like saison is one of my favorite beer styles, and I like the full sort of gamut of like a traditional saison, like a saison de pont, and then kind of maybe a mixed firm, sort of layers of complexity and maybe even some acidity and all that sort of stuff. This has got a really nice balance between the two, actually. It's got that real dry moorish saison appeal, very Belgian aroma, but then it's the apricot. It's like the perfect fruit for it. It's like a juicy little bauble of fruity fun. It's delicious. It works well with the beer style.
That's an amazing description. I think Wildcard do fruit beers really well, actually. Whenever I've had a fruit beer from them, it's been good stuff.
We were very lucky to have their Neeperland event at Mother Kelly's Bethnal Green on Thursday. Just gone.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and they made 4 collabs with Baron, Avex. Oh, I always say that wrong.
Azvex? Yeah.
Azvex.
Yeah. And Dig Brew and Attic. And it was like, Neepers aren't normally my style. I just don't know. I think it's the thickness of them and the lack of bitterness, because I'm West Coast is the best coast is my motto. But saying that, the beers were really tasty, and I did drink, like I had a third of each, and then I revisited some, and I was like, oh dear, please don't like Neepers now, because you already like all styles.
like
think,
trying to find
think, like,
something. You're
right
like, that thing, I
time.
don't like it.
I know, right time, right place. Like
Yeah.
New England IPA can be delicious, but like I can't have too many in one sitting. And I know that's the opposite for some people. That's just what they want all the time, isn't it? But,
I wouldn't say all the time, but I would say if I'm going with IPAs, to be fair, I'm a bit biased because I'm from Boston, so it has to be a New England IPA for me. Like I don't know anything else, so it's for me. I have to say New England.
Isn't the irony about a New England IPA though that the original yeast is from Boddington's?
Yeah,
that's the irony of the
so
New England
funny.
style anyway.
I like fruity. I think for me it is like the
juicy,
big fruity, juicy, like, and for me that I prefer that to bitter. But I mean, like, saying that again, like, I've had amazing West Coast IPAs where I've done the same, where I'm like, I don't like West Coast IPAs, and then I'll have it, I'm like, oh, like elusives, I'm like, oh, Andy, no. Like, you've done it again. I like it. I think, to be fair as well, like, as I've sort of grown and sprawled out, I've been more like, kind of any of them. I like so many things, but like you said, it's like, oh, I like too many things already, please, I don't need to like anymore, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, take me back to, how old was I must have been like in my 19, 20-year-old self. I was like, don't like beer. Because in my head, beer was lager.
Yeah.
Then I found myself working in a pub and I was just like, I'm surrounded by all this lager. And then someone was like, that's not lager, that's ale. And I was just like, okay, like, I'm just going to serve this nice food. And they're like, you have to recommend, like, because I was doing silver service, and it was like a really nice fullest pub in North London, and had a lot of history and a lot of like famous people coming in. So I was like, okay, well, I'll start recommending these beers with the duck and this like bocconcini and whatever. But then they were like encouraging me to try the beers. I was like, oh, this is going to just taste like, my head was Carling, what Carling tasted like. And then I tried everything and it was so delicious. And I was like, oh, and that was the downhill, I guess. But now looking back, it's an uphill. But yeah, just so weird. Like, all my friends, just because we would drink in that pub before, when we were, before I went to uni, and then they saw me working there, and now they see me working in beer. It's just, it's a little bit of a crazy story that I love beer so much. When I was like, no, it's like,
whereas that thing that it goes back full circle, and it's like, you start at like lager, then you've gone all the way around everything else, and you come back to lager again. And I've just been finding that, like, recently I'll see like a really interesting lager on, and I'll be like, oh yes, like, can't wait to have that over, like, I used to just absolutely love just New England IPAs and like that kind of like dippers and those, and then it's like, oh, I think I've maybe hazied myself out. And now I will take like a really interesting lager, which I never thought that I would do in my life.
I think like the thing with New England IPAs, which people don't think about, like the continued iteration of them, which Joe's probably discovering, is that like technology has played a massive part, like cryo hops, for example.
Yep.
Like that's a huge part in kind of the New England IPA movement. So like, actually, what's quite exciting about New England IPAs that we have come to know now over their journey is that it's actually kind of gone along with technology.
Yeah.
And I find that, as someone who loves beer history and kind of and other things, like really interesting. Like, we're living in that moment where technology is really impacting the beer styles and flavors that we get to try.
Oh, it's been so lovely talking to you, ladies. Oh, we kept you way longer than we meant to.
Thank you both. Thank you both for coming on and for sticking with us this long.
Yeah, it's been so lovely.
Open invitation again.
Open invitation. Come back whenever you would like. Just let us know, or we'll be like.
Where do you? So, Joe, where are you based? And Tori, where are you based?
So I'm down in Kent, near Canterbury. And
I'm in Berkshire.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm near you.
Yeah, I'm Reading, but working in London. There's such a UK map here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just trying to work out, because I do on my bucket list, which sounds like a weird bucket list, but I've always wanted to do the Kent Green Hop Festival.
I was meant to go to go this last time, but it was either cancelled or postponed or something, wasn't it? When I was
it was on this year, but it was quite small.
I imagine it probably with pandemic kind of the pandemic stuff, but I might try and
come down next year, because that's like it happens along the road for me. So
I go to Kent and I go, Joe, I'm staying at your house, thanks, please.
All right, ladies, we're gonna let you have the rest of your evening back. We've taken up enough of your time. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. It was a delight.
Oh, good.
So nice.
Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Really gutted that I'm ill and I can't actually drink the beer.
I was gonna say, because you're really gonna like it. It's all right. Have it when you're better.
I was getting FOMO, but also that was not a dramatic cough that I threw in there just to be like, I'm sick. That just came out. But yeah, I was getting FOMO, but it makes me look forward to drinking it even more when I don't have a banging migraine and congestion, because I want to be able to take in all the delicious flavors.
Yeah, it's good. And as Tash said when we weren't recording just now, like, you've got to do some self-care and make sure you look after yourself, and then it'll just be all the more delicious when you get it later on.
I was gutted because I was like, the thing is it's like the show must go on, and I was like, I feel a bit crap. I had the morning off from work because I was not great, and then I was like, okay, I'm feeling better, go, like, we can do this. And actually I'm happy I did, because it was just a really fun conversation. It was a really nice conversation. It's always lovely to like speak to Jules, and getting to speak to Natasha was like really great as well. So like she said, we kind of have seen, you see each other online, but you don't really get to have like a proper conversation. So it was really nice getting to have like a proper conversation and be able to say like, oh yeah, Crafty Beer Girls has been pretty great. And I do want to go to a meetup, but every time that there's like a meetup being held, I'm like, oh, I do want to go to that. And then I look at my calendar and I'm like, oh, it's the one night that I can't do it. So
one day it'll happen.
That's a goal for 2023 for me. We'll manifest all the best things for Crafty Beer Girls and Hop Hideout, and for me to get to go to a meetup.
And if you are a woman or you identify as a woman, we'll put the link to the Facebook group in the show notes to join Crafty Beer Girls if you haven't already. It's a brilliant resource. It's a really positive space, and like as we've said, it's been really instrumental in the things that we've done. So it was really lovely to have them on, and Jules is amazing, Tasha's amazing. So good to have them on. Open invitation as always to come back.
Absolutely. We could do a whole Crafty Beer Girls specific conversation. Like, I'd be happy to do that. We could go to a meetup and be like, let's have a chat. But yeah, and I think the one mistake we made is we didn't ask them to plug any of their things, but we were too deep in the conversation, but we will put the show notes, the links to it. And I know like there is specifically, Hop Hideout, for example, there is like a calendar of events we can link you to, and buy some beer online from Hop Hideout. Really great selection.
Check out Indie Beer Feast and get your tickets so you can go next year.
Maybe we'll be there.
We might be there. You might get to meet us. If you do,
we haven't done our planning yet. Maybe we'll be there.
All of the things will be in the show notes. Tori, if people want to I don't know. What do
if they want to praise me for just being,
but looking after
living
yourself,
that rock and roll lifestyle,
that moment of self-care, where can they talk to you?
Yeah, if you wanna admire my rock and roll lifestyle, drinking a tea and a water while everyone else is drinking an amazing stout, you can find me on Instagram at adventures_in_hoptimism, or at Gmail at adventuresinoptimism@gmail.com, or you can email the podcast at a woman's brew podcast@gmail.com, or find us on Instagram at A Woman's Brew on Instagram, and you are going to get one of the two of us, and it will be a fun mixed bag of who you're going to get, because we don't even know. It's just whoever's available and sees it first.
Yeah, whoever gets it first, whoever's got connection, whoever's not busy.
whoever's not working in a place that has no signal.
That's me.
Or just lucky dip. Take a lucky dip. Jo, if people want to talk to you, where can people talk to you?
Come talk to me at my beer school, which is Love Beer Learning, and you can find us on you can find me at Love Beer Learning, because it is me. It is I, Love Beer Learning.
It is I, Joanne.
And Love Beer Learning is on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Pinterest. I'm usually on Instagram or TikTok. Come find me there. You can also look at my website, which is lovebeerlearning.co.uk, or you can email me lovebeerlearning@gmail.com. You're going to go drink your tea. I'm going to go drink some
my
more of
tea
this
is long gone. I'm going to go top up my water. Thank you for putting that in my face. And I've just had this visual when you said it is I just pictured someone like stealing your Instagram and going, it is I, Joanne, you have won a contest. That's going to be, look out for that message.
We do need to work out.
It is not going to be Joanne.
I think there was something I said the other day to you, and I was just like, oh no, that sounded like I've been kidnapped. I can't remember what it was I said now. Anyway.
Well, you definitely didn't say it is I, Joanne.
No, it wasn't.
On that note.
Cheers.